Peace, everybody. Welcome to Mikey Ice TV. I have a special edition today with a B-girl by the name of Bebe-Ray. She's from a crew called Straight Up B-Boys, SUB4. And a lot of people might ask, like, what is SUB4? Like, I never heard of SUB4 before. SUB4 is actually ROXRITE first crew before he was the Renegades, before he was Break Disciples, before he was the Squadron. He was with a crew called SUB4, and we're going to talk about that. And I can't wait. And this is a super nice day. Hey.
Hey, hey.
It worked.
Making it happen.
It's your first time?
Yeah, I never do live, so thanks for breaking that open for me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Bebe-Ray, let everybody know who you are. Would you mind introducing yourself so the audience can know who you are?
Yeah, for sure. I want to show a little throwback here. I've got it in print from film. That's me and
oh my
you.
gosh. Dang, what year was that?
This had to be about 2010 to 12. Yeah, that's when we kind of had our little reunion. But yeah, but we could go back.
Yes.
Basically, I was a B-girl in SUB4, the one and only. It was at a time where B-girls weren't really coming into the thing, but I can explain kind of how I got into it. Still now I'm more into like promoting jams and judging and getting the kids involved, teaching them about the culture. We can talk about that later too, about what's going on more current. Yeah, but I've been blessed with just being in the right circle, you know, and you know how it is. You just got to get out there and you end up meeting people. I was influenced by so many different people from all over the country, and I just really feel fortunate that I had that time in my life and that it's extended into me now as a parent and being able to share that with the next generation too and keep it alive. So I'm all about.
Yeah. So what year did you first get involved with breaking?
So it must have been about 96. And
96. That was a good year.
96, 97. I was turning 16. Just kind of getting my young teen independence, trying different things. I was actually into skateboarding, and I'm a photographer.
I was a skater too.
Okay. We have a lot in common, actually. So I started out by photographing the kids at school that were in the cafeteria breaking at lunch because I was in the yearbook squad. So I just was like a bystander at first, and I was in a totally different mode. I've always loved to dance, but I didn't even know breaking really was current at that time when it was making that comeback. Of course, it's beautiful to watch. Anybody gets drawn to that. And I found myself hanging out in the gym all the time, like watching these guys. There was a crew called the SKD from Sonoma County. I'll shout out to them because they and I don't even know what SKD stood for at the time. I'm so sorry. I think it was like something kids. I'll have to remember for them. But you guys might have heard of Jimmy Hits. Some of my followers. Jimmy Hits is one of my old friends from that time, and he's a real outspoken, outgoing cat. He's a DJ now, and he's like, why are you standing around watching? You can do this stuff. And you know, at that time we were like putting helmets on and just trying to spin because that was just fun. And I didn't know really anything about, like, you know, footwork. I just watched these guys doing their power moves in the gym. This was at Pioneer High, so I'll shout out to Pioneer High too, West Side Santa Rosa.
Who was at that high school at that time?
What's that?
Who was at that high school at that time? Was ground level going to that school or child?
No, none of those guys went to my school. So the thing was, I got introduced from this SKD crew, which was the Santa Rosa crew, and Gordy was at my high school. I don't know if you guys know who Gordy is.
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, so Gordy, one day, like, somebody plays the right jam in the quad, and he busts out, and I was like, what was that? And I fell in love with just...
Yeah, for people that don't know, Gordy's Flexum. He never goes by his original name. Yeah, Flexum.
Everybody's family name. So I saw him in my history class, and I walk up, I'm like, what was that? Like, you got to show me how you do this. And he's like, yeah, you got to come to the dances, you know. So I started hanging out, and this is how I met the SUB4 cats. I showed up to the Windsor High School dances because I lived in Windsor.
Oh,
And
okay.
some of my friends went to the high school, and they let me, you know, they're just like, come along with us, crash the party. And I started following the boys around, ROXRITE, and some of the kids that were in the Windsor High.
How old was ROXRITE back then?
I think he was 14. And he was just a skinny kid just swimming around doing windmills. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even really notice him at first because, like I said, I was like in love with Gordy's style, or sorry, Flexum's style. And I'm just asking him to coach me, and I'm doing Russian kicks and stuff and just trying to, you know, I'm dancing all this, you know, the 70s was making a comeback. Everything was kind of disco. We were freaking.
Yeah.
But I tried to just follow, you know, what's going on with these guys. So there ended up being, you know, everybody was doing these like showcases, like talent shows in the high schools. And so we were getting around going to all the talent shows, and this is how we would like spy on other crews. So I went with SUB4,
okay.
and they invited me because there was a few girls that I met, luckily. The girls were like, let's practice. And I will never forget the first time I heard Run DMC, It's Like That. And again, I mean, I was just a white girl from the suburbs.
The original version or the house version?
I think it was original, but to me it sounded like house because it was just like banging, just the beat, you know, just driving beat. And I was like in somebody's garage, and we threw down some linoleum or something, and I hear that song, and I'm like, yeah, this is really right where I want to be. Like, this is perfect. And I was so happy. And so the girls, we all tried some little routines. We did some talent shows. And if you want to know how I met Ground Level,
yes, how'd you meet Ground Level?
There was all these different connections. So one of my girlfriends might be on here, Moni. I'll shout out to Moni in case she comes on, Monica, and DJ Ouija from back in the day.
Yeah.
Shout out to them.
Yes, Ouija. I remember Ouija.
Yeah, we're still so tight. So they're cousins, and of course we ended up showing up to all the same dances and stuff. So I was introduced to them, and then getting to where we were at the talent show. This is Elsie Ellen High, the east side of Santa Rosa. SKD was doing a big show. There was all these power heads. I mean, there was kids doing some really cool shit. I mean, we had little kids up there just doing head spins for days. I mean, there was a lot of power moves. It was more of an Asian breaker style. So I was exposed to that. And while we were practicing for the show, I see this guy standing in the doorway, like just watching us. And he was wearing, you know, kid. Okay. So he was wearing jean overalls with like a wife beater. And he was just standing there all cool, you know, just all serious, staring at us while we were just being goofy. And I'm like, who's that? And, you know, so he was scoping out the spot to see what we were up to. And pretty soon I found he's doing hip hop on stage. So I get invited to a hip hop on stage in Windsor. Anybody who was there remembers what this was like. We put on different routines. You know, we did crew routines and 2v2s and stuff. And we did like partners. And anyway, we put on a show, and we got tons of people. I mean, we got people coming from Sacramento, and this was all ages at the community center. I'm sure you've been to some of those. Yeah. And then we would battle our local crews there. And that's how I ended up going from one crew to the other, because when I saw Ground Level and ROXRITE and all those guys coming in hard, like, I mean, they were dressed like a crew. They had the attitude like a crew. Oh yeah. I mean, when those guys walked in, they were all wearing like their Bulls jerseys, you know, basketball and football jerseys. Everything was baggy. Oh my God, I have pictures right here. I should just like dig one out.
Yes, let's see the throwbacks. What's up, iRock?
Hey, iRock. He said he's from Hawaii, huh? I got family in Hawaii too. I was made there. Romantic. Let's see. We got some random flyers. Yeah, so we would make all the flyers for those jams and pass them out. And, you know, for those kids, it was before the internet, okay? So you couldn't just throw your thing on Instagram and have everybody following you know where to go. You had to know somebody. And just like, you know, with like, these are actually not that old, so maybe not. You had to know somebody if you were going to get into a party, right? Like you had to get a flyer. You had to hear from a community center, and someone who was actually willing to put on a jam for kids that were under 21, because that was the challenge for us. You couldn't get in the club. So we wanted to know, like, where is it at? And this kind of leads me to, I don't know if you have another question, but it just kind of leads me to the part you would probably recognize too, is that like I feel like I came in at a certain era where there was a revival, and I didn't really know a lot about what had happened before. All I knew was if you see someone's style, you could tell where they were from, just like with rap. Like you could tell, like, people from Sacramento that rap, you know, in the Bay Area versus New York, and the beats and all of that. There was there's still kind of styles from location, but I really feel like you could see someone dance and know, oh, like that's Sacramento style, like that's style elements, or, you know, Modesto style. But we definitely, because you had to get a video to see anybody dance. Like you had to actually have someone record it with their mom's video camera and then get that tape somehow passed on, and you know, you had to wait maybe a year before you ever saw the VHS and plugged it in and watched it.
It took about a year before the tape would come out.
Around. Yeah, so you really had to be there in order to watch and be a part of it. So like they'd say, it's not a spectator sport. I mean, you'd miss out if you didn't go. And so we learned by being there. And there's several things that impressed me about the whole culture, if you know, want to talk about that and what it meant for me. But
yes, how many people was in SUB4 at that time? Because when I met the guys, there was probably at least like 15 people.
Yeah, it was growing fast, because I think when I first met them, there might have been like 7 or 8. There were several, and some of them, you know, they were like cousins, and they were all like classmates with ROXRITE. And what would happen was we would go battle other crews, and at one point we went up north to Cloverdale, and we went to battle a crew there. And they were pretty good. I mean, they didn't have a lot of like influence, but we could tell that they'd been doing their homework. Like they must have been watching videos or, you know, practicing at the dances just like we were, but they were just like maybe a step to where they didn't quite understand all the culture and stuff and the etiquette, but they were cool little cats. And we decided, why not just take them in and we can have this other chapter. And let's see, I was like one of the only people driving at that time. So I'm thinking a year, it must've been 98. And we took them in as a chapter, and I don't know if anybody was doing that back then. Like that kind of, to me, it seemed like a new thing. Like when Ground Level was like, oh, we're going to take this crew. And I was like, what? But we just battled them. Like, why would we? And he's like, yeah, but if we get these guys on our team, you know, we were like spread out and we have more. I mean, I don't want to quote him, but that was the concept, I think, was like, let's get some more cats on our team. We can help these guys bring them up. They need mentors. And we need new blood, and it would be fun. So we had these separate crews that we kind of started up in different towns around us, and then we're able to spread that, you know, each one teach one type of thing.
So, you know what? I've heard ROXRITE say this many times. He always said Ground Level was his teacher, and you were there firsthand because you were together with Ground Level at that time, right?
Yeah, we ended up being together. We were a couple there for a while. Yeah.
So what was it that Ground Level was actually teaching ROXRITE? That's what I always kind of like, I always wanted to know, like, what was he teaching them how to do?
You want me to set the record straight?
Yes. Because I always hear him say that ROXRITE is so humble. He'll be like, Ground Level's my mentor. Ground Level taught me this. And I seen Ground Level break because I was breaking with you guys. And I seen ROXRITE break, and I'm trying to think, but what did he actually teach him?
So, you know, that's an interesting question, because I think that with us all teaching each other, and this is what I loved about crews, is you all have like your strengths, and maybe you're teaching someone something that isn't, how do I say this, like isn't even necessarily your strength. Like even now, like I want to be humble and say, and I'm definitely going to answer your question, but I just want to say, like, I'll be humble and be like, who am I to judge, you know, because people asked me to be a judge recently, and I was like, but if you saw me dance, like, I'm not the best. I mean, I'm going to be humble and be like, I'm always still learning. Like, I'm not even satisfied with myself. So why would I think I have the right to judge? But in my mind, I think I was taught right. And I was surrounded by the culture enough to know what it is, you know, and even if I can't beat someone that's in that battle, I could still judge to say they won. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
the instruction is what ground level was able to bring, because he set the tone about, you know, what a battle was about and all
Okay.
the elements of the hip hop. And I know it had to come from somewhere to get to ground level too. But yeah, they have different styles of dance,
Ground
clearly.
level was good for those times, for that era. He was pretty decent.
Yeah, for sure. I was impressed by him. I went to the dances. Oh, let me turn this down.
Okay.
I was impressed by him because he had more attitude than anybody. I mean, he had more
He had a lot of character too, and he knew
charisma.
how to dress.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good.
This-
Yeah,
this-
that's another thing. It was all about how we would dress too.
oh my gosh, when I would see him, he had the Kango, he had the 3 Zulu medallions on, he had the Adidas jersey with the Adidas bottom, the Adidas running shoes. I was like, yo, this dude's from head to toe a
Oh, he
straight up B-boy.
loved to get dressed. I think that was his favorite part because he liked to, he liked to have character. Like, I'm looking to see if I have any pictures of him right here.
Okay.
But he really loved to have all his character together, and he would be different every time. You would expect him to come in look in a certain way, and it wouldn't be that time. He'd be doing something totally different.
Yeah.
And so I was always surprised. And yeah, he set the standard for like, how are you all going to get together and look like a crew and dress like a crew? And to be honest, like when we were together, like I would feel like, am I dressed right? I had to ask the guys in the crew, like, is this okay? Because like I
remember you
style,
always
but
wearing
I
a
was
visor.
new. Oh, I wore a visor all the time.
He was in love with the
Yeah,
visor. Like,
because
the visor was your thing.
you could still spin on your head with that. It doesn't have the little nugget at the top like the baseball caps.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I had that funny T-Boz short haircut too for so long too that was kind of iconic.
Oh,
but
yeah, I
it was
remember
hard
that.
to deal. Hard to deal with.
Yeah.
But yeah, the styles were always fun. Getting together, like still to this day, like when I see people come out like just chilling in their sweats, like that's fine because you're comfortable. But I just love when somebody dressed with B-boy style, like to the nines. Like I think that's part of it because your art is, it's visual. It's a visual art. And even though it's kind of like a tap dance too, because you got to feel, what this dancer's putting on the floor. Literally, you sit on the floor. I learned that from Grams, from Zulu Gremlin.
Yeah.
He, not to kind of jump, but he helped me to see it, that it's not just a visual art, but that a dancer is a musical artist. They are actually tapping out, their addition to the song. So
One of your friends wrote.
what do you got here? Only visor wearing now is tea time. Oh, that's right. Living in the country club life. I haven't worn a visor in years.
So yeah, so getting back to the original question, so did ground level teach ROXRITE any like footwork patterns? Did he teach them how to freeze? Did he teach them how to do power?
I think that it was more about like how to put it together, and
How to
I
put it
think
together.
that, yeah, what ROXRITE could do was take the framework that I know he respect ground level because ground level gave him like the pieces, like that, like he didn't necessarily. I mean, we didn't necessarily show each other the moves. It was like we all got together, we all practiced and ciphered together, and it was really kind of up to each of us, which is what I thought was in the beginning. I was like, this is really challenging because you come to practice and everybody's doing their own thing. So I didn't feel like I was being taught necessarily, but by watching each person work out their creativity and then giving each other props was like, yeah, do that. And that's what ground level, he was like a coach. So he'd be watching you do your thing and he'd be like, oh, you can take that and you can keep going with it. And I think at some point, like, honestly, I mean, ROXRITE probably took that coaching to a certain point and then he just got in his zone and he just almost went, So, I mean, he'd be solo practicing when we were done. He was at home practicing while we were, whatever, going to get burgers or something afterwards.
Yeah.
But he stuck to it. And I think that dedication really shows. I mean,
after all these years, huh?
Yeah, the general. This is somebody pranking me.
You know who it is?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Family right there. So.
But I also wanted to ask you. I remember I threw a B-boy jam in Madeira. This is like 1990. 1996. Did you come? Did you come out?
I've been to
Because
Madeira.
the whole crew came. Yeah, if it
Yeah.
was in Madeira, the whole crew came.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, give me details
It was
because
my
there were
first
so many.
jam.
Oh. Okay, so this wasn't the Hip Hop Olympics because that was, I think, in
No,
Modesto. And
that was in
where did you do the jam at?
Sacramento. I did the jam in Madeira.
What kind of building? Was this
It
like, was it a battle?
it was inside of a community center with carpet, and we had a big piece of linoleum. And ROXRITE entered the 101, and he won.
Oh shit. Who did he, that's not the one where he battled Crumbs. That was a whole nother bigger
No,
thing. But
no. The
yeah.
funny thing about this is the first jam that ROXRITE. He told me in another interview that he actually left up north and came and he entered another contest. It was my first jam, and then everything else after that he started entering. So it was his first jam that he entered outside of the Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when ROXRITE started all of a sudden just going to like every competition, and it was like we were like behind him like a wave just pushing, like we will get you there, you know, you're gonna have the crew behind you. Like there was the time where he battled Donnie Crumbs in order to go to the Pro-Am in Miami. I'm pretty sure Zulu Gremlin might have been host or but yeah, I'll never forget that one. There's been so many jams. I really love the one where we would go to like Sacramento State, and there was this one event we went to, and we were doing crew battles, and we had so many people. We had 14 crew members there, and we were all down. Like, I think there was actually like 15, 16 of us. We were all down to battle that day, and we were so hyped. And Ivan was there. I'll never forget seeing Ivan get down for the first time I ever saw him live. You were there, and
I remember it was
split up.
Yes, SUB4 versus SUB4.
Yeah, so they tell us you can only have 7 people in the crew, and we're like, well, shit, who are we gonna cut? 7 people, and we said, all right, you'll just be SUB4, and then you'll be, you know, another SUB4 crew, like SUB4 2, and so
that's what it was.
We couldn't believe it because we were like the little kids in that. I mean, we were at the college and we were like 16.
Sacramento was mad. They hated you guys.
Oh, we come into the big city. We're these little kids from the wine country. Like, who knew? And we show up 7v7s. I think well, maybe they were smaller crews than that, probably 5. But we actually, and you know, B-Boy Child was there. We were actually reminiscing about this the other night. We had to split up. And you know, at some point it was kind of like, at first we thought, let's take the strongest, put them in a crew, and then but the other guys were like, you know what, we're gonna battle too, then we're gonna get in too. And just for those watching, I mean, the big deal about all of that was, you know, big deal, you get two crews battling, but the remarkable thing was we went and we ended up in the finals against ourselves. So we were, you know, here we are, SUB4 versus SUB4, and it was like the ultimate.
It was funny because there's the winner is SUB4. Everybody in Sacramento was mad because it was like we won either way.
Yeah.
Even if it was SUB4 2 or 1. And I remember that day we all went to Denny's. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember it. And I remember that other crew, and I kept trying to think of what the heck was the name of that other crew. I want to call them like Whiz Kids or something, but they had like this style. They were like the tight jogger pants when it wasn't. Everybody was wearing baggy shit, and they were wearing tight joggers and like tight, you know, sleeves.
Yeah.
And I mean, the way they moved was just clean, and we ended up going out with them. Everybody, it was huge table of people at Denny's.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that we went in there deep. It must have been like 30 of us at the table.
Yeah. It was
that was so cool. I'll never forget that.
No. When we got down to that versus ourselves, just wanted to say, like, you would think that if a crew was there and they knew, oh, we got this, like, we're just going to have fun for the last rounds. But I think within my crew, it became, and I was photographing the whole time because that was really, I mean, I'm like a historian like you. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is history. So I was just photographing, you know, our own crew, battling our own crew in the final. I was just like, this is so awesome. But they did not let down on each other. Remember, it almost got like more feisty because they wanted to prove, like, because like there was kind of like the underdogs versus like, you know, what you would think was like the iconic members of the crew. And I can't remember at this point which one won, but I think that they got to the point where it was really like battling ourselves, like looking at yourself in a mirror and seeing like, can you even beat your own crew? It was just a bizarre experience. It was really, I'm glad you were there. I'm glad we were there. It was nothing like it.
I was so happy to be. I was so happy to be part of that because I've known you guys, you know. So it was like it it felt like family, you know. And naturally, like Mikey's gonna be down with like SUB4, you know, for the
Oh, I
day.
mean, you were always with us. You were like the cousin. Like, why
Yeah,
aren't you in our crew? I mean, I always felt
yeah.
comfortable with you. You've always been just so open. And, you know, like, I never knew what to think, like, coming up being a girl, like, and then the way I looked and I was, you know, I didn't grow up in the streets. Like, I just had this boring childhood until I met all the B-boys. And I'm thinking,
Mhm.
you know, again, who am I? Why would they let me in? Like, it's almost like, get out of here. Like, you're not, you know, I expected some prejudice. I expected it to be
Oh,
like,
okay.
you know, what do you think you're doing? And that,
Mhm.
you know, like white men can't jump kind of thing, like white girls can't dance or something. I don't know. I expected prejudice at that time. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you guys were all so good to me. And still, I mean, my brothers, you know.
I
So I
thought it
just think that
was
you guys
cool.
proved that wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was cool that you were, because I remember you just being so like, you were very open. You were very like open to like communicate. You weren't standoffish. You weren't snobby. Like anything. I remember when I recorded you at it was the Hip Hop Olympics when you had battles some Asian girl. You remember that?
Okay, I've been breaking for 3 months. I had no idea what I was doing. I just barely learned like the 6 step and some freezes, and I was trying to like turn floor work into a power move. And I see this girl wearing just sweatpants and literally
Yeah,
just sweats, and
the
she was signing
sweats.
up, and you guys went, "You're battling today," and I was like, "Oh shit." You guys were like, "You're battling today," and I was like, "I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Don't put me on stage." But then somebody, you know, pointed, "That's the girl you're gonna battle." And I was like, "Oh shit, she's just in her sweats." Like I judged her by what she was wearing, right? Because we were so into our style. And then
Yeah, in the
turns
fashion.
out she was crushing it. She had flares, windmills. I mean, she
Yeah,
was doing all the power. And I come out, you know, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna have to stick with, you know, the thing that I do and
hmm
just let it be, just consider it a practice. And I was so glad you guys pushed me to do that because I can say now that in the '98 Hip Hop Olympics, I took second place for the B girl battle. I mean, no other girls
yes.
tried, so second place, first loser. But you
What was
know,
that?
just doing it.
I was gonna say, for you, what was that feeling like being like? Because back then there was probably at least maybe four B girls.
It was a lonely, lonely world for B girls out there.
Yeah, what was that like for you? Like, did you kind of feel like at some point in time that you didn't feel like you were really a part of it because it was really male dominated?
Well, that's a good question. I think that the way I grew up, I grew up with my brothers and, you know, I was okay with being the only girl around. I was actually very comfortable with that.
Hmm.
It was almost like when the women would come around, that's when I got intimidated. So it was kind of awkward, but I love to see the girls like now. I mean, I love like B-girl Paulina, like Kimmy and her brother that just took a big battle. Sorry, I don't know which one it was.
Hmm.
Um, but I love seeing them get out there now. But back then it was like, oh shit, there's another girl. And then you know that my crew would be like, oh, you're going in, you know, because like
Yeah.
that was an advantage at that time. Like if you had a B girl, you were like actually bringing up, you were elevating the challenge because you could go
Hmm.
up against a crew that didn't have a girl, and it's almost like for me, I was like the icing on the cake, you know, no matter what I did. So you kind of had like a little bit of privilege because you're willing to try, and people respected that. But it was a lonely world, and I was afraid of the B girls because we never saw each other. We didn't
Yeah.
know what I didn't know what to expect, and I misjudged people. Um,
Hmm.
but I got into some more battles later on, like after I had kids, that more girls were getting in, especially the all styles battles, which we've been doing for the last 10 years, 15 years.
Okay. iRock had asked you, he was like, did you ever enter the Queen Bee battle? There's a battle in San Diego that was only for girls. It was called the Queen Bee.
No, I didn't, but I sure loved watching it. I
Yeah.
think it's
It
beautiful.
was vicious back then. The level was high because you had Beta, you had Abby Girl, you had Miss Little, and you had BB. from France.
Oh, I remember BB. She was at the summit. Her and her friends.
Yes.
They were they were like, I want to say, like, they broke open something for me where I realized you don't have to dance like a guy if you're a B girl. Because like I was surrounded by all the B-boy styles. And when I saw those girls came out, they even put their feminine flair in. I kept thinking you have to go in, you have to go hard and fast, and you got to be tough and all this stuff. But they would come in and they would be like goofing off together, and they would make it so much fun. I mean, they still had that battle attitude, but they were coming in like, shit, this ain't nothing, you know, and they're like laughing at the guys, like, where are you at, you know, and like all this attitude. And I was like, oh, okay, so I don't have to be just like the boys. Like, they were inspiring. The European girls, like, I think they came out first.
Right. So SUB4 is established and you guys are doing your thing. Outside of Santa Rosa, what other crew kind of like struck your mind? Because you're right, you're in between San Francisco and like the Central Valley. So you had like you had some other crews, Rock Force, Renegades, and Style
I remember
Elements,
Renegades. I remember Wicked and going to practice in the Bay with him. I think we even showed up at his house, and I remember going down like in Palo Alto or something, and there was a leather couch and some DJ tables, and like, you know, it was real personal back then. Like you went to practice with someone at their studio, and you know, get invited to their home. I'm sure it's still the same way, but I loved how we would go and see, you know, their families cooking, you know, where they hang out, where they jam, where they practice, and they'd be opening up their world to you. Because again, you weren't seeing this unless you had like someone pass on a video. This was pre-internet for those of you just joining us. And it was like, you get to, you know, live in their world and let them show you how they get down. And that was really fun. And I remember Wicked teaching me how to up rock and how to actually battle with up rocks. And I love the way he does it. I can never do it like him. But I'm still watching his videos to learn again and again, you know. But definitely Renegades, and of course Style Elements. You know, we were going against Donnie Crumbs and Ariston, and who was Iron Monkey, and I don't know if they were all in the same crew, but I remember them all being there.
No. Monkey at that time, he was down with, that's like early 96, 97. He was with the crew called Abstract Flavor, and then I think in 2000 he got down with the Renegades.
Okay. And then you know that ROXRITE ended up going with Renegades. So about the time that like I wasn't with Ground Level no more, and I was getting more and more into my career as a photographer, and I was kind of stepping out, and then pretty soon I was having babies and I wasn't even in part of the scene. But I remember right when I was, you know, we were all breaking up a little bit, you know. We were growing up, you know. You couldn't just go after school and practice every day. You had to get a job and like live real life.
I remember when I would call ROXRITE though, and his mom said he was out delivering pizza.
You seen his little brother Luis? He can dance. He hangs out with Tiebreaker and stuff. I've had those guys come out to some parties. Yeah, I used to tease Luis all the time.
Yeah, ROXRITE was he was a pizza delivery driver.
I don't even remember that.
Remember that, and then on the weekends he would enter jams.
So also, did you know that we got jobs at the community center? So like this is what an innovator ROXRITE is. He decided he could go to the community center where we were practicing, and he got a job there teaching b-boying. This was like, nobody was doing this. You didn't have instructors and teachers and classes. You weren't having a job as a b-boy instructor, okay? He was the first one I knew that ever did this. He was at a community center where they all knew and loved him because we were having our jams there and we were practicing. And pretty soon he's working for the community, and then he's working for the city. Got that city job. And that was, you know, his high school job was teaching breaking after school with the next kids that were coming in the summer school. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, he always found a way, right? He found a way to make it into a career. No matter, anybody would say b-boying is for kids or you can't make any money b-boying. I was impressed with him finding a way. He was, you know, focused 100% on making that his life, and to bring that full circle when it really hit me, everything we've been through, and realizing like world-class you know, now he's the general, was I took my family to Italy in 2015, and I knew there was going to be a finals battle that was going to lead to the battle of the year. So I had been out of it for a few years. I've been practicing lightweight with kids and stuff, but I wasn't on the scene and I hadn't been to a lot of battles. So I didn't even really realize where ROXRITE was at in his life. And of course, I knew he was in Red Bull and all of this, but it really hit me when I'm in a whole nother culture, a whole nother language being spoken. Of course, the dance still speaks. And that was the beautiful thing about it, is you could still go to a battle and it didn't matter what they were saying. You could get what was going on. But the first thing I see when we sit down is this premiere comes up on all the big screens around me, and it's ROXRITE, my boy, Omar, just right there, big on, you know, all the big screens. And he's like, "What's up? This is ROXRITE. We're getting down for the," you know, and he was actually introducing Battle of the Year. And I'm like, dude, so this goes from being, you know, 15 at the school dances to I'm in the middle of Rome watching him announce Battle of the Year. And I was just like, good for him, dude. Like, I was so proud of him.
He deserves it, though. Like, I remember at that time, I used to call him all the time. And, you know, when he was SUB4, and he would tell me about all these trips he was taking. And, you know, and as you guys kind of start dismantling, as he left SUB4 and went to the Renegades, I started noticing his career was picking up. And then once he got on Red Bull, I couldn't even reach him anymore. You know, it wasn't personal. It's that he was just always, he was in a different country every time that I would call him. But I've always felt proud because every time when I see him, even to this day, he walks over to me and shakes my hand. Like he acknowledges me. He doesn't try to act like he doesn't know who I am, because it's like, bro, I've known you since you were like 14.
Yeah, no, he's so down with his crew. I know anytime I hit him up for something, he answers back. I know he's the same with the others. And I'm thinking, dude, this guy's got, you know, probably hundreds of thousands of people following his story. I love that he did the 100 battles. He did that 100 battles story, and looking back at those, I was wondering how much of that footage you actually provided, because, you know, when you and I got reconnected in like 2014, you had offered to make that video for me of all of the SUB4 battles, and you had this footage and you put that together for me. And I just want to say again, like, thank you so much for that.
You still have it?
Yeah. And I'll
keep that, girl.
God, dude. And I
put
didn't
that
even
in a
know
gold
about
plaque
half
somewhere.
of those videos.
Yes. Have is you have like the treasures to the commandments of breaking, though, because that footage, it's like you can't really find it, but unless it really comes from me, because I was the one that was filming the Hip Hop Olympics, like all these things that he was going to, you know, so.
Yeah, and you got footage of everybody. I mean, you know, this is where I relate with you as far as when you were just on with K1,
K1.
You were reminding me that when I first got into this, it was because I was trying to record what the other kids were doing. I didn't really see myself as a part of this until I was trying to record it and be like, wow, look at what these guys are doing. And honestly, like half the time I didn't want to enter the battles because I wanted to make sure somebody was there, you know, journalizing or recording, archiving it. And I don't have them all with me because I'm in a different place, but one of these days I'll have to open up the album and go back to the still shots that I took, because a lot of them are still shots. But you have the video that matches, and so it's really fun to see. And I'm just so glad that like those memories are there, and that story is being told, because you're doing what I probably would have been doing had I not had a family. I would have been probably touring around trying to follow jams and just record it, because I mean, there's always something spectacular. Who doesn't want to video a battle? I mean, it's the funnest thing to do in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything more fun than a b-boy battle?
Yeah.
Like, I dare you.
So with all these years passing by, like, what kept you so involved, like, with breaking? Because I've been consistent in the b-boy scene for, I'll say about 30 years, you know, since like 91. And it has its waves, it has its moments where sometimes it's like I love it because I love breaking, but at the same time, it's kind of like life makes you make choices where you have to grow up and you have to take responsibilities, and you can't be that teenager anymore. You can't be at every jam. But I never walked away from it, and I noticed that with you. Like you never walked away from it. Like what kept you so in love with breaking today?
Because it would break my heart. I almost cried when you said that. Okay, so like some of the most important things I think that breaking brings to anyone involved is the all ages atmosphere where you can have your grandparents and your babies in the room. And I have some funny videos of kids just laying down eating burritos while, people are battling. Like, I mean, it's a community focus that anyone can be there and enjoy it and take part.
Hmm.
Even if they're not dancing, they can take part in, in the enjoyment of it. And so I think that we don't have that in a lot of things. I mean, you're not bringing grandma and you're not bringing baby to the club, to be trap dancing or whatever. But this was a culture that you could have pride in, and you could show your mom. And I
Hmm.
think that the matter of respect that is given, where you don't touch someone, like I've told people that aren't in the scene, like b-boying is not it's not gangster rap, okay? It's not gangster. It's not, you're not there to beat someone up. You're not there to put someone down. You're there to showcase your talent. And I think that underlies the whole culture for me, and that it's inspiring enough that you want to be there, and it brings people up, which is what we need so badly. Like now, I feel like we
Oh my
really,
gosh.
really need this. And I
Hmm.
am so happy to be a part of it in any way that I can, whether I was kind of injured over the last few months, right when I got re-inspired to get back into some of the functions that were picking up again after the lockdowns. And for me to
Hmm.
start hearing about functions again, it's like, oh, I want to rush and just go get back into it. But I've got to watch my health, as we get a little older, hey, a little more experienced. It's a little harder on your body, and the
Yes.
recovery is slower. And so I've tried to stay, in shape. And there have been times where I fell off, and I'm like trying to come back
Hmm.
into it, starting all over again. And it's heartbreaking when I'm away and I know I'm missing it. But it's like every time the reunion, it's like you never went away. It's like a love story that never ended. It's like the moment you show up at a jam, it's home again. And what kept me to try to stay active when even I couldn't compete or anything, or there wasn't a lot of functions happening in my area. I had little kids, and I would go to the
Mm.
school and help them in their talent shows and teach them how to start a little showcase and get some b-boying going, and teach them the culture. And man, kids were begging me when I walked on my kids' friends. I'd walk onto the campus and they'd be like, teach us how to break, teach us how to break. And they'd be like
Oh,
shaking
really?
me as I walk through school. And, I even at sometimes felt like I had nothing to offer them, because I was just like, oh, I'm so out of practice. Like, what could I possibly do? But, just being there and supporting it and giving them a space and giving them an audience and a coach. I mean, I wish we had more of that happening, and I'm glad to see it's still alive. But I feel like a lot of people, they get into breaking for their own self and for their ego, and they don't realize how much they could be impacting people if they kind of held their hand and pull them in the way that I think people did for me, because I never would have been a part of any of it if I didn't have someone that welcomed me. You can't do
Hmm.
it from the outside, you know what I mean? You have to make friends. And for those kids that are asking for help, we really need to take time with them while they are interested, because it might be just a spark that they have, that flame can burn out if you don't
Yeah.
fan it. But that's what's kept
I
me
think
into
for
it.
me, yes. I think for me, this is an important time because I'm seeing media, especially with breaking about to go into the Olympics. Everybody's starting to speak right now. Everybody's really starting to start. Now they're telling their stories. Now people are starting their own podcasts as though, and never before in breaking that I remember where you actually not everybody's starting to tell their story though, or in creating their own brands, their own clothing line, their training facilities, and organizing. Like there's so many camps for youth right now. Like, there's so many new kids that are breaking like super young,
Yeah.
you know. So I think this is an amazing time, like right now, and I feel proud because I can honestly say that I know that I was the first to start this on the media because I started doing interviews in '94.
Yeah, I've been watching. You've been there. In fact, you've touched base with me several times saying, "Hey, can you tell me about your story?" And when you highlighted the B girls, you went through a long period there. I remember watching your social media, and you
Yeah.
had, didn't you have hiphop.com?
Oh no, I didn't have hiphop.com. That was fresh.
Okay. But you did a feature on B girls for like a year straight, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And when nobody was even paying attention to the B girls, I don't know, it was like quiet in the world. And I remember seeing, I could count on you because I would like, I wonder what the B girls are doing right now, you know? And I could go to your sites and see you always feature someone, tell their story, you know,
Yeah.
give them a platform. And you were even pulling together like crews from all around the world, weren't you?
Yes. I was doing some amazing things. I feel that way, like even like your story though, like I felt like I wanted it to be told because I know that I can go down again as this is your first interview, am I right?
Yeah.
See? And 10 years from now, or when your kids grow up and they become like young adults, they can go on YouTube and be like, dang, look at mom. Look at mom when mom was young. Like, you know what? Like, they'll have something so they can show their grandkids. And that's what I've always been about. I like to preserve things so generations can have something to say, you know what? I remember back in 2023, you know, when I did my first interview with Mikey. You know, maybe you might have another like 5 or 6 more after that, but you at least have something that you can say, this was my first.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even realize I had a story until you asked me. And then I realized
Mhm.
everybody has a story. Like, of course, we all have something valid, you know, and it's not just because I know ROXRITE. I mean, that's a big part of it, but the experience that someone has when they get brought into this culture and they grow up learning the ways and, you know, sharing the experience of growth that you go through personally when you're like, man, I suck. You know, you start off like that, man, I suck. And to have someone patting you on the back or pushing you to go or to tell you, hey, no, you have your own style. Like, here, you know, this about you works. Like, keep playing with that. You know, we need feedback as human beings, and we need that social interaction. And
Hmm.
not to say I wouldn't be dancing. Like, I'm dancing all the time by myself. Nobody sees me. I don't really put stuff online very often. It's when someone else happens to be there that captures it. But more rewarding when you have you and what your expression and your unique contributions. And so thank you
Right.
for seeing that in people, including in me, and giving me a chance to reminisce and look back at like, how did I become a part of this? And you know, for some people it was like one little thing that maybe wouldn't have even happened. You know, they could have missed this whole thing. It just happened to be the right person that they ran into or came across a function. I mean, who knows? Everybody's got their story on what brought them into it. And my story actually starts more like where yours is because,
Yes.
again,
That's that's
the
another reason why I wanted to
photography.
do. Yes, that's another reason why I wanted to do it with you because your story begins with me though too as well because I met you like how you said when you were in your first stages of breaking. I remember you going taking pictures with you and with because I was North Star Zulu and ground level was North Star and it's like everywhere you guys went, like I was there. All those big raves at Home Depot and all that stuff, I was there. I remember when I went to a gym in Santa Rosa, and after the jam, we went to your house.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay. My parents were out of town and we threw a function, and then you know, ground level's like, some of the B-boys are gonna come stay at our house after because they're all from out of town. And I was like, how many? I was like, just a few. There was 30 of you guys came to my parents' house and spent the night. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, like I'm gonna be in so much trouble. But I gotta tell you, I woke up in the morning, everybody was chill, everybody was respectful. You guys didn't tear apart my house. There was no alcohol. I mean, it was love and respect. And we were so tired after dancing all night. Everybody just came and crashed. But
I'll
that
never
is
forget that.
so
That was
funny. You
so
were
fun.
there. Oh my God. God. That was the only party I ever had without my parents home. Thank God nothing
I
happened.
remember that. I remember it was a nice house too, and I remember like we're staying here. I was like, oh man,
With
this is
30
gonna be
cars all
fun.
up and oh my God. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. But I was so happy to have you guys because if you didn't, you know, again, it's like we're couch surfing as B-boys and B-girls. Like you're just looking for the next jam. And, you know, I
Yeah.
hear people talking about how many hours they put into traveling, you know, here and there. And to know you have a place to stay, I still feel like it's almost like I would trust a B-boy crew in my home. You know what I mean? Because I get what
Hmm.
they're about. Like before I would take any other strangers, I think that you understand, you know, where people are coming from. That, I mean, at least that's my perspective, my
Hmm.
naive perspective. But yeah,
Right.
you guys
So
made good.
yeah, I mean that's what I've always felt like I wanted to be respectful because like I wanted to always be able to keep traveling and going to with this helicopter pass. I've always wanted to make sure that I had a welcoming spot whenever I went to go see somebody. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, that's Mikey, like he stole the VCR at my house. So like I never wanted to have that reputation, so I've always kind of just kept my name like respectable, you know. So
Yeah.
when my name come up, it's like, yo, let him stay over, and it stayed like that. And I was able to like, man, I was staying at everybody's houses. I would drive all the way up north. You know, I remember I stayed at I think who else did I stay at? Man, so many people's houses. I just can't remember. But I wanted to ask you, the level of today's B girls. There's B girls right now that I seen that can do like 15 2000s, that can do elbow tracks, air tracks. How do you feel about being a B girl from the 90s and then the level where the girls at today? Like, what goes through your mind when you see the girls break today?
You know what I love is that even with the power that, and I'm sure this is for the guys and the girls, everybody knows that
Hmm.
as the generations come up, you know, I remember when, you know, the freaking, we would be like those crazy Germans, like they do flips and land on their head, you know, like people just got crazier and crazier and they were more daring and more athletic and just the level rose, you know, which is just amazing to watch. It's the same thing when I watch like the Winter Olympics and I see, you know, the first girl to do a 1080 or whatever.
Hmm.
And you're getting a whole level of skill, but what impresses me the most is that I okay, do you ever think about this? How many different ways is it possible to move your feet into a pattern where you've got this footwork and to watch people like scrolling through videos on Instagram, watching B-girls battle, to see all the variety that is still there after all these years and to see that there's still something new. It's
Hmm.
amazing. I mean, you would think it would cap out at some point. And I think that, you know, in the 90s it was like we were just trying to learn the essence and we were trying to learn the footwork the way it was taught to be done. In a way, I wanted to know, you know, what's the correct way to do this. But then at some point you realize that the correct way is to do it your way, is to put your own flavor in it. And I think that the B girls really get that these days. I mean, they go out there and they do their thing and there's no shame. And I think the beautiful thing about our time is that, like, you could be from any era, you could be from any age, you could be from any place. And now it's like there's no real standard, you know what I mean, that just says,
Hmm.
oh, that's B-boy in style. Like now you could go out and you could have be a hippie, you could, you know, you could go out with African style, you can come out,
Hmm.
you know, with whatever. And as long as you love what you're doing and you dance to that song better than the person you're battling does, everybody respects it. When back in the
Yeah.
day, maybe we thought that stuff was goofy or they weren't real B-boys or whatever because they didn't have like that exact technique and that exact look. So I think that we've, as a consciousness, we've opened up our minds to what B-boying can be and that it can incorporate lots of different styles from other dances. And I think that that's how we grow because we don't put caps on it. We don't put too many limits and boundaries. Like we still appreciate the essence footwork. Like right now, I'm trying to go back to all the fundamentals and, you know,
Hmm.
get down the moves that I never had, like the footwork I never had, whether it's just a 3-step because I skipped it, you know, and I went on to try to do something else and I didn't actually have just a basic 3-step. And so when I look at
Hmm.
people and I'm like, oh, what's that crazy move they're doing? And they're like, that's just 3-step footwork. Like, but it looks so cool because somebody's bringing it in, you know, they're making it their own. And so when I see the B-girls now, I am so excited because I love how fast they move. I love how the footwork is coming together. I mean, I'm always impressed by just the level of dance. And I don't care what, I mean, honestly, I love power and all that. But when someone has dynamics and they can almost like tell a story, it's just the theatrics and stuff, and they can bring it in. It's just, I'm never, it never lets me down when I see the variety that we've been able to accomplish in this dance, and that people have taken it the way they have, that they've taken it out and expanded it and grown and added, you know, whatever elements to it.
Yes. So breaking, going into the Olympics next year, what is your personal thought on that, knowing that when you first got involved with it, the level that it's at, do you feel like that it's becoming a sport, or should it be considered a sport, or is it still a dance?
That is so good, because it's kind of like when you look at like how when MCs break off and they do their albums just as like a rapper, but they don't have like a live DJ cutting their beats, and they don't necessarily, the rapper's not necessarily rapping for the crowd to dance to, you know, like when I see a DJ up on stage and they're playing music and they're doing their thing, that's fine. But if you're there as a DJ and you have dancers and you're not playing to the crowd, like as a dancer, I feel disrespected by that. Like if the DJ is up there just doing his cuts and stuff, and he's not like thinking about his transitions and how someone's going to move to that, or, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you can go to parties where like the DJs don't even know how to like mix songs anymore. Like what's the play like from this song from this computer and that one. So I get pissed. I will literally leave a party and be like, you know, this DJ sucks. And it's not because he maybe doesn't have talent. He's just not a dancer's DJ. And so I kind of feel the same way about the B-boy, in that like, if you're going to go have the Olympics, and I mean, the Olympics, if you're going to have it is the Olympics. Yeah. Because we called it that too. But if they're going to do the Olympics and they're only going to have B-boying, like, how does that look? Like, do you have a DJ? Do you have?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Do you have a DJ? Yeah.
And so my first question is like, is it just B-boying, and how does that work? Because the whole point of B-boying was you're on the fly, like you're improvising to what the DJ is doing. Because you could go home and play a record, like I've got Apache right here, incredible bongo band. You could play a record and you can listen to it so many times, just like when somebody hears their jam and it's been recorded in the studio and they know all the lyrics. But then when you go watch that in concert and they change it up on you, what are you going to do? You know, so if we can't be on the fly and we can't improvise to a DJ that's maybe going to cut it a little different and throw in a challenge, then I don't think the B-boying is really what it is. Because if they're just going to play a song and watch two people dance to it, is that really a B-boy battle? So I feel like if you're not going to bring in all the elements, including the art and the graffiti and the MC that gives you the whole culture and the mood that promotes the dance, because you can go B-boy, like, in a community center, you know, with whatever background, and you can be in your zone when you're practicing and stuff, but there's nothing like the energy. Okay, like this picture I showed earlier, you've got right here, you've got the graffiti art, you've got an MC ground level, you got the DJ working here, you got the footwork, you got the B-boys. I mean, this is what it's all about. To just throw a B-boy, it's like you're going to throw a B-boy in like some sterile environment. You're not going to, I'm not digging it. Like, I would love to see if they bring it all together, but as a sport, then you're just looking at acrobatics, or you're looking at maybe the athleticism of a person, but who's judging that? Are they going to bring like OGs in and have them judge? Interesting.
And the burning though too, can't you actually go up and give somebody the burn? And would that be acceptable when you have grandparents and kids? Like, what is that? What is that he just put in his mouth? Like, what is that?
Yeah, like how street can you get?
Exactly. So everybody can relate to it.
I mean, I guess it does pose a type of challenge that like you can have that, you know what I mean? Like you can have that as a branch of hip hop. Like you have the Olympic style competition. Probably like if I look at anything else, like any other type of sport or athletics, I don't know, but does the game change? I mean, if the game changes, then it's just for show. I'm sure somebody
Get you.
who goes out and battles and wins an Olympic gold medal wouldn't want to say that it's just for show, that they're there and they want to be proud of what they've done. But will the culture still respect? Is it a sellout? Like, it depends on how it's done to me.
Yeah.
Because who's profiting off of that, and what's it giving back to the culture? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what is it doing for everybody? Is it, if it's giving attention to breaking, but it's not going to teach you the 5 elements of hip hop, then you're just sucking
that's
it
important.
out.
Yeah.
You're
Then on top of
exploiting it.
that, would you still look out for the people that after the Olympics, though, after you use them, like, are you still gonna, like, are they gonna be able to still be able to provide for their families, or how about if they get hurt, like, would you still be there for them?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, and probably even more so in this new generation, want to look at this like this should be something that you could be a pro at, right? Like the way that ROXRITE and so many other people have done, that you could go pro and you can support your family doing an artistic thing that actually benefits other people, for whether it be entertainment or education, inspiration. Obviously, coming from an artist, like, there's a lot of value in art, and that's the first thing I teach kids when I get with them is, what is art for? And if you can't answer what is art for, what is b-boying for, it's not just for your own props. You know what I mean? I think it is for building community, and it's for bridging gaps, and it's for communication, it's for resolving conflict. It's, you know, it's bridging a gap where people would have jumped into gangs to fight over turf, but instead they could work out their differences on who's better by who had more style, more originality, more flavor, you know, more integrity, more authenticity. You could be better than somebody and own that and have that pride without fighting. And, you know, I hope that that's what hip hop can still bring, because I feel like it saved people that I know that could have been dead by now. And it saved
I would have been one
lives.
of them. I would have been one of them for sure. Because I grew up in Los Angeles, and I wanted to do what all my cousins was doing, which was gangbanging. But breaking just looked a little bit more funner, because it had more colors, and there was the scratching, and everybody had the nice tango. So I was a little bit more intrigued by that. But the gangbanging was right there in front of me, though. Like, everybody you already know, in the 90s, everybody, even up north, you had the Norteños. They were dressing like Norteños, but they were still breaking, but there was still that gang environment. I remember the community centers that I would go through in Fresno. I used to have to go through a Cambodian gang just to get to the community center, and they was all lined up in the front with blue rags in their pockets. What's up, Venom? And I remember some of the dudes, they looked at me, and they were just like, they wasn't gonna let me pass, but they started speaking in Cambodian, and they were just like, oh, he's a b-boy, he's b-boy, and it was like, oh, b-boy, and it was like, yo, let him through.
That's all peace.
And they will let me through. But if I wasn't on the b-boy and being a brother going into like an Asian environment, they was ready for me.
No, that's real. I mean, I remember the fights. I remember growing up surrounded by the gang fights, even in the suburbs of Sonoma County. I mean, there was the MS-13, there was the Norteño thing. There's the Vietnamese and the Laos and Cambodians. I mean, I had friends from everywhere. Yeah. And they're, you know, the few that could slip out of that and found a better place to put their energy, you know, bless them. Like, I really see this peaking again right now. And, you know, if I'm going to put out a message right now, it's like, this can save lives if we use it appropriately. And I don't want to see hip hop, the underground hip hop, get sucked in to the pop culture and be exploited the way that, you know, how disgusting it can be. And to totally change the motive of what I grew up learning, which is what I school people on. I school old people on this. I school young people on this. When they start, oh, you're in hip hop, it's like, but not what you think. It's not TV hip hop, okay? This is community building. This is character building. You know, you're going to lose, you're going to walk away crying, and you're going to have to figure out a way to come back better next time. That's, you know, there's value to that. And without the threat of your life being in danger, you can have the peace to know that you can go work on yourself and come back and contribute something. I just
Yes.
hope that that stays alive. And if it doesn't, then it's gone. You
It's
know, that's the only thing
very
that really matters to me.
to me, it's very educational if you want to go that route.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's so many things that we can do with it to get, you could use it as something that gets attention like it is in the commercials. But once you have that audience, what are you going to do with that? Because I
That's
feel like that's
that's
where
the
we're
key
at.
right there. Yeah, you're right. That's where we're at with that. My other question will be to you, which will be my last question to you, is that looking at Lori 25 years ago and knowing where you're at today, what advice or what is some things that you said that you probably would have changed knowing that your younger self, looking back at your younger self and being a mature adult today, that you can look back and say, man, if I could change that, I would change it. Is there anything that you can look back on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always things we can say, you know, and we all want to be like, oh, well, things just brought me here and I'm cool with that. But I have no problem with looking back in hindsight and saying, you know, maybe I could have done something different. Maybe I could have stuck to, you know, maybe I could have given myself more time. Maybe I could have given
Hmm.
myself more patience or, you know, instead of like, I talked myself down a lot of the time, even though I think I
Mm-hmm.
had potential, but I didn't see it in myself. I wasn't looking in the mirror. I was looking at everybody else. And for all those people that are out there thinking, I'm going to take up breaking or I'm going to get back into it, you know, I honestly, it's so funny because now what I do when I practice, I don't know if this is even right, but I practice in front of a mirror now. I never did that before. I was in a community
Oh,
center
really?
watching everybody else and I was distracted. And now it's like, I'm just going to look at myself and see how this looks. Like, can I
Mm.
make these shapes and can I do, you know, what does it look like when I have that dynamic come close or far? You know, any little thing, you know, film yourself, watch yourself. And the thing that surprises me every time that I wish I would have known then and I wish I would have done then was that when I watched myself, I always found something to love when I thought I was going to be like, oh, I don't want to see what I just did. And I anticipated, I think my memory of what I was doing was worse than what it was. And so I never gave myself any credit, which is what brought me down. So
Mm.
for people that are thinking like they're, you know, they're whack, like watch yourself and find something to love because when you find
Hmm.
that thing to love, then you go, oh man, that looks really good. Like I can do that more, or I can do that even, you know, I can count on that. And I think that that gives you more inspiration and more dedication. And because like I said, there were so many people to watch. There was so much talent. There always is. It's really easy. There's always somebody better than you. Don't get caught up
Yeah.
in that. You know, find that part of yourself that you really love about your own expression and telling your story the way you do. Because at that time, I might have thought like I look funny or I look weird or you know I'm not like them. But if I would have embraced that at the time and been like, yeah, I'm not like them and no one's like me, then I could
Hmm.
love that enough to out.
Did somebody try to call you? Okay. No, you're here.
Power. But that was your last question, anyhow. So timing's good.
Yes, yes. I just want to say thank you. I'm glad that I had you on here. It was such a blessing to finally hear like your story because I've known you like over 25 years and I never knew like your roots. So you telling your story for me it's like I'm putting the puzzle together. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking the pieces and I'm finally putting the puzzle together that's just been sitting there.
Yeah.
And I know that you love breaking and I'm glad that me and you've been friends this whole time, which that's amazing because friendships today on the internet don't even really last. What?
You've always been that person I could count on. It's just
Yeah.
like to smile for a hug, you know, for encouragement and to
Mhm.
keep the story straight. And I appreciate what you're doing to archive all of this and get, you know, the real
And
voices to tell
yes,
it for themselves.
and also just letting you know, I haven't forgot. I still owe you some shirts, and
Ooh.
I just want to, yeah, just let me know your sizes again, and I'm definitely gonna send them out to you because that's what I'm about. I'm about just like whatever I can do like to make things better or whatever I can do, to keep my brand and like my reputation solid. I'm never into like burning people, and I know that you have bought some shirts for me, And I'm not sure if I did send it to you. I'm pretty sure I didn't, but I would like to know if you could send me your sizes again, and I'll make sure I'll send them to you.
Okay, yeah, that's all good, man. I mean, I know it all comes around. I actually forgot that I do remember that, we were trying to put something together, it didn't come out
Yeah.
all the way, but
Yeah.
I would be totally blessed to hold anything of
Okay.
yours and
Can
see
I
your
ask you, what
work.
size are you in the shirt right now?
I think I'm a small to medium, depending if it's
I
boys or
got a small
girls.
for you.
Okay.
I have a small for you. So after we get off the live, just send me your information. And I just want to ask you one more question because this is sticking in my mind before we go. If you had to pick like a top B-boy or somebody that you look up to besides anybody in your crew, like who would it be that's all around that you said like he's complete?
Oh, that's a good question because I actually just told a B-boy, a new kid coming up, that even though he didn't win the battle he was just at, that he did
Hmm.
the most complete work. And he actually took that, I was like, wow, that really means a lot to me because what I noticed was some people come out hard, with a certain thing and they count on that. But then they're shocked if that doesn't work. And I
Hmm.
like seeing a well-rounded B-boy. So, I mean, I'm just going to shout out his name right now because he's the one that's actually putting on functions and stuff, and maybe nobody's hearing about this kid, but I think, he started off being more of like someone who likes to jump off of cliffs into the water and like he's a wild kid. But this is Andrew Jumanji, so shout out to Andrew. He's got an Insta profile and he's just gotten into b-boying recently. So I want to say, like, looking at what he's doing, I think he's doing it right. I think he's learning the culture and the fundamentals, but he's trying to put it together where he's got every piece of it and he can feel like a complete b-boy, and he's so dedicated. So I respect that. As far as in the past, oh my God, that's a hard question. I mean, I always really respect Remind. I spent a lot of time with Ariston and learning from
Yeah.
him. So he wasn't necessarily right in my crew, but always felt like like he was like a cousin to our crew, and he's always been there. And I love, and I was kind of shouting this out on your last one with K1, that with Remind, I feel like
Yes.
he's so humble and he's so willing to show people what he's got, especially now. And I know he came from a place that was a lot more ego. He spoke this is not my words, but his, and
Hmm.
he went through a growth period. And what I really love about him, he's always reinventing himself. I think that he doesn't
Yeah.
get stuck in having an image that he has to keep and feel responsible to anyone else. And so I think that the well-roundedness is that he stays open and allows himself to grow and change, and maybe change his whole style every few years. He changed the way he dressed, the way he looks when he
Yeah.
dances, and he's flexible. So I really like that. And what's up, child? Um,
What's up, Jesse? Yeah, thank you for sharing that because he watches what I do and he's very aware. And I know there's so many b-boys around the world that are super amazing, but when it boils down to when you get down to your nitty, your top five, like his name is always in it. I don't care what country you're in, though. His name always comes up, and I wanted him to hear this without me even like bringing his name up because he's still very relevant. He tells me all the time he never quit dancing.
mhm.
He just plays the background. He doesn't like to be in the spotlight. He doesn't like to show his
I
stuff
mean, we
all the time.
all got
And I was
responsibilities and a life to live,
yes,
but yeah, I think that, and I could pick people that were from somewhere else, but why not choose someone I got a chance to learn from and be with and dance with, and he was so humble, and he always turn and give someone props when they deserved it. And he was interested in, like, you could just tell, like, he likes that weird shit. Like, who came on was saying, like, oh, he's so weird, I seen this kid, he was like, he did so weird, like, I like that. He was not afraid to be different, and I think he set the tone for that. I really think he was one of the first guys who
he was
you
the
could
first.
see was just like, I'm gonna be weird with it, and you know what? It worked. It's
I didn't
long term
understand it
status.
at first. When I first seen him, when I was breaking with him, I used to think, how come he ain't got the rock steady style? Like, where's his can go? Like, what's he doing?
I mean, you see him come up here in California, like he'll be wearing like cut off, like rags, like just ragging, like burlap sacks, like, you're like, what is going on? But he's like getting into this like earthy style, which I think the Californians really dig, because like we can dig
Yeah,
that like earthy style, and I think that he's making it okay. Like he's okay to kind of, it's not clowning, but he's like playing with it, you know what I mean? And he's okay with that. And I think anyone else who's out there doing that too, you know, and again, like, oh my God, it's been a blessing for everybody that's been in my circle. They probably don't know how much. I mean, I got to learn from Kenny Swift. I got to learn from Zulu Grams and, you know, just a lot of people that really came from, you know, the East Coast too. And I just feel like with them giving their time and sharing their time, they set the example. They get that respect because they took the time out. In fact, shout out to Ken Swift. I know we came into Santa Rosa. We had some Puerto Rican food at, at our local spot.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, Lori, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I'm going to send you, did you already subscribe to my YouTube channel?
Probably not. I'm not as much on YouTube, but I'll get in touch with you. I could follow that because if you're going to keep this up, you know, and
yeah, there's a lot
of
girls I got coming on here too. Believe me, I got a whole legion of girls that's going to tell their stories.
I love to hear it.
Yeah, so thank you once again for your time, and we'll be in touch, and send me your address so I can make sure I can get you back that shirt.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Peace.
Oh, you just